The Trump administration has recently invoked a legal mechanism rarely deployed, state secrets privilege, in a case concerning the deportation of Venezuelan migrants. This action is not occurring in a vacuum. It arises from a direct confrontation with the federal judiciary. District Judge James Boasberg questioned the legality of these deportations, specifically regarding the administration's reliance on war authorities to remove individuals alleged to be gang members. Judge Boasberg ordered the administration to provide details about these deportations, information that the administration has now refused to disclose, citing national security and diplomatic sensitivities. Simultaneously, the administration has appealed this judicial order, seeking to continue the deportations, a move that has revealed divisions within the appellate court itself. Arguments presented before the appeals court have touched on fundamental principles of due process and the balance of power between the executive and judicial branches, even drawing comparisons to the legal treatment of enemy combatants in past conflicts. This unfolding situation raises critical questions about executive power, judicial oversight, and the application of extraordinary legal measures in the context of immigration enforcement, setting the stage for a significant legal and political confrontation. This judicial challenge from Judge Boasberg initially took the form of a direct order: halt the deportations and provide details. The administration's immediate response was not to comply with the information request, but rather to assert state secrets privilege. This invocation effectively blocked the judge's ability to scrutinize the operational details of the deportations. Consequently, the factual basis for the administration's actions became shielded from judicial review, at least in the short term. The legal arguments presented before the appellate court further illuminate the core tensions. The administration contended that Judge Boasberg's order represented an overreach, an unprecedented and enormous intrusion into executive power. This line of argument directly challenges the judiciary's role in overseeing actions deemed by the executive branch to be matters of national security. Conversely, Judge Millett's questioning highlighted the fundamental principle that executive authority is not absolute and remains subject to constitutional and legal constraints. This judicial perspective underscores the concern that unchecked executive power, particularly in the realm of immigration and national security, could erode established legal protections. At the heart of this legal and political clash lies the invocation of the Alien Enemies Act of 1798. This statute, rarely employed in modern times, permits the deportation of non-citizens without standard immigration court proceedings when deemed a threat to national security. The administration's justification for using this act rests on the assertion that the Tren de Aragua gang constitutes an invading force. This characterization is strategically significant as it frames Venezuelan migrants as a national security threat, thereby providing a legal basis for bypassing established immigration law and procedures. The implications of this legal strategy and its potential ramifications for due process and the rule of law now demand closer examination. However, the administration's national security justification stands in stark contrast to the perspective of those directly affected by these deportations and their advocates. For the individuals deported and for legal observers concerned with due process, the invocation of the Alien Enemies Act and state secrets privilege is not about national security, but about the circumvention of established legal and immigration procedures. From this viewpoint, the administration is utilizing extraordinary powers to expedite deportations, effectively denying individuals the opportunity to present their case before an immigration judge, a right normally afforded within the legal framework. This tension between national security imperatives, as defined by the executive branch, and individual rights, as traditionally protected by the judiciary, is further highlighted by the divergent opinions expressed within the appellate court. While Judge Walker appeared receptive to the administration's arguments regarding jurisdictional technicalities, suggesting the legal challenge should have been initiated elsewhere, Judge Millett raised a far more fundamental concern: the potential erosion of due process. Judge Millett's reference to the comparatively better legal treatment afforded to Nazi detainees during World War II, while disputed by the Justice Department, serves to underscore the gravity of the due process concerns at stake. This comparison, however controversial, forces a critical examination of whether the current actions are consistent with established legal and ethical standards, even in the context of perceived national security threats. Furthermore, the operational tempo of the deportations themselves contrasts sharply with the protracted pace of legal proceedings. The administration executed the deportations rapidly, seemingly outpacing the ability of the judicial system to effectively intervene. As the plaintiff's attorney pointed out, the sheer speed of the deportations made it practically impossible to mount individual legal challenges before the flights departed. This operational reality raises questions about whether the administration deliberately sought to preempt judicial review through rapid execution, creating a fait accompli before legal constraints could be fully applied. In addition to the domestic legal battle, this situation has acquired an international dimension. The Venezuelan government's legal action in El Salvador, seeking the release of the deported Venezuelans, indicates that the consequences of these deportations are not confined within U.S. borders. This international legal challenge introduces a new layer of complexity, potentially escalating diplomatic tensions and highlighting the broader regional impact of the administration's immigration policies. The case is no longer solely a domestic legal matter, but now carries international ramifications, demonstrating the far-reaching consequences of the administration's operational decisions. A deeper examination reveals that the administration's actions extend beyond the immediate deportation case, potentially reshaping the landscape of executive power and judicial oversight in national security matters. The invocation of state secrets privilege in this context is not merely a procedural tactic to withhold information. It represents a strategic assertion of executive authority to define the boundaries of national security and to limit judicial scrutiny within those boundaries. If upheld, this precedent could significantly curtail the judiciary's ability to act as a check on executive power in areas the administration deems sensitive. Similarly, the reliance on the Alien Enemies Act, coupled with the invading force narrative, warrants closer scrutiny. This legal framework, designed for wartime scenarios involving enemy aliens, is being applied to civilian migrants, based on the alleged actions of a criminal gang. This expansion of the Act's application raises questions about the potential for its future use in a broader range of immigration enforcement contexts, effectively blurring the lines between criminal activity and national security threats, as defined by the executive branch. Furthermore, the characterization of the Tren de Aragua as an invading force is not simply a descriptive label. It is a strategic framing device intended to invoke a sense of national emergency and justify the use of extraordinary legal powers. This narrative serves to legitimize actions that would otherwise be considered outside the bounds of normal immigration law and due process protections. By presenting the situation as a national security crisis requiring immediate and decisive action, the administration seeks to preempt legal challenges and public debate. The long-term consequences of these actions could be profound. If the administration's legal strategy is ultimately successful, it could establish a precedent for future administrations to invoke emergency powers and bypass standard legal procedures in immigration enforcement, particularly when framed through a national security lens. This could lead to a significant shift in the balance between executive discretion and individual rights, potentially eroding established legal protections for non-citizens and expanding the scope of executive power in matters of immigration and national security. The unfolding legal and political battle is therefore not just about the deportation of Venezuelan migrants. It is about the broader principles of executive accountability, judicial oversight, and the enduring tension between national security and individual liberty within a democratic framework. These are the strategic implications that must now be considered in full. Looking beyond the immediate legal arguments and operational maneuvers, the broader implications of this case extend to the fundamental principles of governance and the international legal order. The administration's willingness to publicly challenge and disregard judicial orders, even to the point of questioning a judge's impartiality and suggesting impeachment, signals a potential shift in the relationship between the executive and judicial branches. Such actions, particularly when emanating from the highest levels of executive power, can erode public trust in the impartiality and authority of the judiciary, a cornerstone of democratic systems. Furthermore, the international ramifications of these deportations should not be underestimated. The Venezuelan government's legal intervention in El Salvador is a direct consequence of the U.S. administration's actions. This interjection highlights the potential for unilateral immigration policies to create diplomatic friction and regional instability. The deportation of individuals to a third country without apparent consultation or agreement can be perceived as an infringement of sovereignty and a disregard for international norms regarding the treatment of migrants and asylum seekers. The legal precedents established or challenged in this case will have lasting effects. The extent to which the state secrets privilege is upheld and the interpretation given to the Alien Enemies Act will shape the legal landscape for future administrations. A broad interpretation of executive power in these areas could create a framework for bypassing legal constraints and expanding executive authority in subsequent national security or immigration-related contexts. Conversely, a robust judicial pushback could reaffirm the importance of checks and balances and the judiciary's role in safeguarding individual rights, even when national security concerns are invoked. Ultimately, this case is not simply about the fate of a specific group of Venezuelan migrants. It represents a critical juncture in the ongoing tension between executive power and the rule of law. The decisions made by the courts and the broader political and legal responses to the administration's actions will have significant and enduring consequences for the balance of power within the U.S. system of government and for the nations standing in the international legal and diplomatic arena. The strategic implications, therefore, are far-reaching and demand careful and objective analysis. In essence, the Trump administration's actions in this deportation case transcend a singular legal dispute. They represent a concentrated effort to redefine the operational boundaries of executive power in matters of immigration and national security. The strategic deployment of state secrets privilege, coupled with the assertive invocation of the Alien Enemies Act, reveals a calculated approach to limit judicial oversight and expedite policy implementation through exceptional legal mechanisms. This case, therefore, serves as a critical bellwether. Its ultimate resolution will not only determine the immediate fate of the deported Venezuelan migrants, but also contribute to shaping the future equilibrium between executive prerogative, judicial authority, and the enduring principles of due process within the legal and political framework. The unfolding legal and political ramifications necessitate continued objective scrutiny, as the precedents established here possess the potential to fundamentally alter the operational landscape of governance for administrations to come. Thanks so much for watching. If you enjoyed this analysis, and be sure to give it a thumbs up and hit that subscribe button for more geopolitical insights like this. I love hearing your thoughts, so drop a comment below and let's keep the conversation going. Share this video with anyone interested in deeper perspectives on current events. Until next time, stay informed and think critically. Thank you.